I've never really liked nature. Not because I was afraid of spiders or the dark, as many people are, but because everything in the forest seemed too unpredictable to me. The city is noisy and dirty, but at least it's clear where to expect trouble from. Everything is different in the forest. There's no warning of danger, it just happens. But I went. Because it was necessary. Because it was a way to get closer to my brother. We've had a hard time with each other ever since my father died. I shut myself down, he was trying to be strong for both of us. We haven't spoken normally for over a year. And then he called me and said, let's go to the forest for the weekend. Just us. Just like when I was a kid. I was silent for a couple of seconds, then I said yes, although I didn't understand why. Maybe I missed him after all. We chose a place where my father and I used to stay, a deep forest, a couple of paths, no tourists. There was no communication, there were no people, there were no facilities. There was only the wilderness, an old trail by the river, and a single wooden campfire, which, according to rumors, had not been lit for a long time. We took a minimum with us: sleeping bags, flashlights, canned food, water, knives, a first aid kit. Without any romance. It was not a journey, but an attempt to return to myself. The journey took almost 5 hours. We walked the last section. My brother walked in front, and I trailed behind, listening to the dry needles crunching underfoot and something rustling in the bushes nearby. I told myself it was just animals, squirrels, maybe a raccoon. There's no danger. It's just nature. When we got there, the sun was already setting. My brother lit a bonfire, he always did it. I set up a tent. Everything went quietly. Too much, actually. No wind, no birds. Only the crackling of firewood and the whisper of the river somewhere below. I couldn't sleep for a long time last night. My brother was sleeping next to me, tossing and moaning in his sleep. I lay there, listening to the tent's awning sway slightly from the occasional gust of air. And suddenly, a click. It was as if someone had stepped on a dry branch somewhere nearby. I tensed up. He listened. No voices. Just one click. Then the second one. But from the other side. I didn't wake my brother up, just pressed closer to the tent wall and froze. It was absolutely quiet for a few minutes. And then I heard someone, or something, touching the fabric of the tent. Right next to my head. One short touch. Light, almost polite. And silence again. In the morning, I asked my brother if he had heard anything. He just shrugged his shoulders. Probably a beast. You're nervous. Maybe he was right. But everything looked fine, too conscious. The next day passed without incident. We fished, ate stew, and remembered how my father taught us to navigate by the moss on the trees. Laughter, conversations, as if everything was starting to get better. But by evening I noticed that there were footprints near the campfire. Fuzzy, but definitely not ours. And they were fresh. I showed it to my brother, and he frowned. Someone could have passed by. Maybe hunters. But there was doubt in his voice. We both knew that we hadn't seen a single person in the last 20 kilometers of the journey. Not a single car. Not a single hint of the others. I couldn't sleep a wink the next night. My brother was asleep again, and I was sitting by the campfire, clutching a knife. At about 3 o'clock, I heard a branch snap somewhere in the dark. Then another one. Then there was a sound as if someone had walked along the tent and stopped. I got up. He pointed the flashlight. Nothing. Just trees and darkness. I started walking around the camp in a circle, slowly, step by step. Goosebumps crawled up my neck. And then I found it. She was hanging right on a tree, about 3 meters from the tent, clothes. Men's shirt. It was old, torn, and stained with something dark. It was hanging on a branch, as if someone had deliberately put it there for us to find. I called my brother. He came running with a flashlight, examined the find, did not say a word. He just frowned, tore out his shirt and threw it into the fire. We didn't sleep anymore. We sat around the campfire until dawn, silently listening to the forest. He seemed to be breathing around us. The rustling. Crackling. Sometimes there were some short, as if deliberately made sounds. Someone wanted us to know that he was here. In the morning we started packing. We decided not to stay another night. My brother looked tense, and his eyes were red from insomnia. I didn't know who or what it was. Maybe a psycho living in the woods. Maybe someone who's been watching us from the beginning. As we were leaving, I saw something scratched on the trunk of a tree. The handwriting is uneven, like a knife, on the bark. It said, "You heard that." But it was only a sound. I stood and stared at the scratched words while my brother threw a sleeping bag into his backpack. My fingers slid over the bark, and the letters were fresh. The fibers are still slightly wet. So it must have been done at night, while we were sitting around the campfire. Or earlier. Maybe at the very second when I got up with a knife and went around the camp with a flashlight. Someone was here, very close. He saw us. I didn't realize it at the time, but later I would dream about it at night. My brother came over and looked at the inscription. Not a word. He just nodded and quickened his pace. He was always calmer than me, but even he had a sharpness in his movements. We followed the same path we had come, but every crunch of a branch, every crack from behind the trees made us turn around. It seemed to get warmer and more stuffy in the forest, as if the air was standing there, compressing around. I could feel my back getting wet under my backpack. And all the time it seemed that someone was watching. Not from behind, not from the side, but from different sides at the same time. It was as if the forest itself began to breathe closer to us. We didn't talk. Just step by step, silently. It took about 2 hours on foot to get to the car, but those 2 hours were the longest of my life. About halfway down the road, my brother stopped and raised his hand. I froze. He took a step to the side and looked at the ground. Traces. Right in the middle of the trail. Boot marks. Big, dirty ones. Not ours. They were walking in the same direction as us, but from the forest, from a side path. Not through the main path, but diagonally, as if someone was trying to cross our path. Or catch up. Hurry up, my brother said, for the first time. And we accelerated. I could hear his breathing getting heavier. I started to stumble myself, but I couldn't afford to stop. I was just walking. The blood was pounding in my ears. We didn't look back. It was some kind of dumb agreement. If someone is behind us, we don't see him. We're going out. Alive. Near an old tree that I remembered from childhood, a thick, dry trunk that looked like a split side, we saw a second sign. There was something sharp nailed to the bark, driven deep. We got closer, and it was a piece of cloth. The same fabric as from that shirt. Only now, a piece of skin was carved into it. Not human. It smelled disgusting, rotten meat. There was a postscript on the fabric. Red paint or something similar. Not in words. Symbol. But not mystical, not religious, just a crooked circle with a crosshair. It didn't mean anything. But that was exactly the horror of it. It didn't make sense. It just happened. We weren't slowing down anymore. They ran. Silently. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my lungs burning, and my legs buckling. The forest became cramped, branches hit my face, clinging to my backpack. I stumbled and fell a couple of times, but I got up without giving myself time to think. When we got to the car, the sun was already high. She was standing as they had left her. We almost jumped inside. The doors slammed shut. And only when the engine started, the brother exhaled. And I realized that I hadn't even really breathed before. We drove in silence. The forest was left behind, but the tension wouldn't let go. It was as if the mirror should reflect someone who didn't get in the car, but rode with us anyway. That feeling of persecution, it wouldn't let go. When we stopped at the gas station, my brother got out first and lit a cigarette, leaning against the hood. I walked up next to him. Neither of us started a conversation. It was only a minute later that he said, "We shouldn't have gone there." I nodded. Then he added, "And if you ever go there again, I'm not going. Even if you beg." It's been a long time since then. We rarely remember that trip. Everyone is busy with their own lives. But sometimes at night, when I turn off the light and go to bed, it seems to me that I hear it again, a click. One. Then the second one. And it's like someone is touching the bedroom wall, just like the tents used to be. And every spring, as soon as the snow melts, I check to see if anyone goes out into that forest. Because if someone goes, maybe they won't come back. The next night, I woke up sweating. Not from a nightmare, but from the sound. A thud. Not in a dream. It was clear, as if something heavy was falling behind the wall. I froze, staring at the ceiling. I lay there, listening. And again, a knock. And again. After a pause. Not in the same place, but as if around the perimeter of the house. "Get up." He went to the window. The yard is quiet. Fence, bushes, parked car, everything as usual. I stood barefoot on the cold floor and stared into the darkness. The next day, I called my brother. I wasn't going to talk about the night sound, I just wanted to talk. But as soon as he heard my voice, he said, "You heard that too, didn't you?" He lives on the other side of the city. He doesn't have trees under his windows, and there are no planks lying around. But he had heard the same thing. A knock. Deaf, at different times, in different corners of the house. Only at night. I tried to rationalize, mice, pipes, heat. He listened and did not argue. I just asked, "Are you sure you didn't take anything from there?" I swore I didn't. Although, I remembered how I put a small smooth stone in my pocket when we left the overnight place. It was strangely round, with no corners. I didn't even notice when I took it. I was just lying at the edge of the trail, and my hand reached out on its own. Then he was in his jacket pocket. I forgot about him until my brother asked. I found him. The same one, smooth, cold, as if wet, although the jacket was dry. I took it out to the trash. If I didn't throw it away, I took it out. I just put it in the tank and slammed the lid shut. I didn't even think to leave it at home. But the sounds didn't stop. One day I came home from work and the bedroom door was ajar. I always close it. Exactly. I even checked twice before going out. But it was open. Nothing was touched inside, nothing was missing. Only the curtains were slightly open. I didn't do it. The next evening, my brother sent me a photo. An old tent, like we had. Gray, with red ties. She was standing in the woods, in the middle of a clearing. The photo came without text. I called back. He answered right away. I found it on my phone. Among the old ones. I didn't take this picture. There were footprints on the ground in the photo. Fresh ones. But we haven't been there since we left. And they definitely didn't take photos, especially since they didn't set up the tent again. She stayed in the garage. And at all, we turned it in after that hike. We didn't want to keep any of the things related to that trip at home. We began to notice that something was repeating itself. Things are shifting. The gate in the courtyard is ajar. The mailbox is open. It's always the little things. Not scary in itself. But it raises one clear question. Was someone here? We didn't discuss it out loud. Every day the situation seemed more absurd. And more real. A week later, my brother said that he had gone to his old place. I couldn't believe it. He asked why. He replied, "I want to understand what it is. I don't believe in nonsense, but there is something here. Something alive. Not otherworldly. And the present. Physical. Somebody. Or a group. Someone was watching us then. And maybe not for the first time. And, apparently, not the last one." I forbade him to go. He was shouting into the phone. He was silent. He only said, "I'm already there." The connection was interrupted. I tried to call back, but it rang. Then reset. Then silence. And only a few hours later, closer to midnight, I received an SMS. "You have to see it for yourself. Come back tomorrow. Not alone. And be careful. They walk all around us. Not at night. During the day." Text without caption. But it was his number. I didn't sleep until dawn. I went this morning. I took a friend. Someone who can hold a gun. Not for shooting, but for confidence. We drove for a long time. The road led deeper and deeper, to the familiar bend where the trail began. My brother's car wasn't there. There were no sounds, no signs of people. But the tent was standing. That's the one. Exactly the same. With only one difference. On its outside, right on the fabric, there were photos stamped with buttons. Old pictures. From hiking trips. From fishing. From different years. And there's a third person in every picture. Almost unnoticeable. Far away, in the shade of the trees. Sometimes only a part of the body, the shoulder, the shoe, the back of the head. We never noticed him. Never. But he was. Always. I put the photos in a bag. A friend checked the perimeter. There are no traces. No signs of life. Just the tent, which was askew, as if someone had folded it in half and changed their mind. We left there quickly. There was no point in calling my brother anymore. I knew he wasn't there. At home, I locked the door and lowered the blinds. The bag with the photo was in the trunk. I didn't touch him. Since then, I've noticed the same thing every day. In any crowded place, be it a store, a train station, or just a street, there's someone who doesn't turn around. Someone's back is turned. Or he leaves the second I enter. It could be an accident. Sure. But now I always check the reflections. In the windows. In the shop windows. On the phone. Sometimes I see someone looking at me. But he's not around. And I'm not sure anymore that any of us got out then. Not completely. I didn't leave my apartment for several days after that trip. Not because I was afraid, but because everything didn't fit in my head. My brother disappeared. Photos from our past, with unknown people standing in the background. Silence on the phone. and the tent is like a symbol of something that we couldn't see back in the forest. I didn't immediately decide to call his ex. We didn't really communicate. She picked up the phone right away, even surprised when I called. I started cautiously, I didn't want to scare her. He asked if he had visited her, called, or written. She was silent for a few seconds and replied, "He called, yesterday. But I just breathed into the tube. Not a word. I thought it was someone kidding." I froze. "Are you sure that was his number?" "Absolutely. I have it written down." "And the voice, the breath?" "I'd know out of 1,000. He was scared. I could hear it." She sent me a screenshot of the incoming call. The time coincided with the moment when I was standing at the tent. I went back to the car, opened the trunk, and took out the bag of photos. I laid them out on the hood. He began to peer. One picture is of a beach. "I'm some kind of acquaintance, brother." And there, in the background, a man is standing in waist-deep water. The face is blurred, but the figure is male. He's holding something that looks like binoculars. None of us noticed at the time. In the next photo, it's winter, and we're hunting. I'm holding a gun, my brother is laughing. And in the distance, a car. It was old, dark, and parked in the wrong place. We didn't know this car. She's not from our company. I started matching. The figures are different, but the poses are the same. They don't pose, they watch. It's like there's someone who's been following us around for years, filming from afar, staying on the sidelines, but in the frame. Always in the frame. And if that's really the case, then everything that happened back then, in the forest, was no accident. It wasn't just an anxious vacation or someone's weird jokes. Someone was waiting. Someone knew where we were going to be. And maybe it was all planned. I decided to visit my parents. We haven't seen each other for a long time. I wanted to distract myself, to talk to someone close to me who remembered my brother and me as children. Maybe in these conversations I will find something that I will not come up with myself, but will see from the outside. On the way, I noticed that the same car that I saw in the winter photo was overtaking me. Dark, dirty, the taillight is cracked. She didn't accelerate, didn't go far, just drove ahead. I turned off on the highway, ostensibly to refuel. She drove on. Or pretended to. I did not return to the main road, drove through the private sector, then the bypass, stood on the side of the road and turned off the engine. Waited. About 10 minutes. Then I drove back to the highway. There was no car. When I arrived at my parents' house, my mom opened the door right away. She said I should visit them more often. I smiled and hugged her. I didn't want to tell the truth, not right away. I just sat, drank tea, and listened to her talk about the neighbors, the garden, and the old furniture. Everything was calm. Too much. But when I went into my brother's room, where we used to sleep, and opened the drawer of his desk, I saw something that knocked me off balance. Inside was exactly the same smooth stone as the one I took from the forest back then. Only this one was dirty, with a wet trail under it, as if it had been placed here only recently. I asked my parents what it was. Mom said, "You brought this when you were a child. From some kind of camping trip. You and your brother got lost in the woods for a couple of hours, and then you came back, covered in mud, scratched, and scared. But you were holding this stone. He said it would bring good luck. You didn't talk at all for a week, just painted. Remember?" I didn't remember. Not a hike, not a stone. No silence. It just feels like something important has been erased from memory. I took the stone. I put it in my pocket. I wanted to throw it away, but then I changed my mind. I wanted to understand. If I already had it when I was a kid, if it was already starting then, maybe it wasn't the tent. And in the wrong forest. It's about me. Or in us. Later that night, I couldn't stand it. I went back to that forest. To the place where the tent stood. In the rain. 1. The path was overgrown, but I remembered the way. Everything in my body resisted going on, but I kept going. It was raining nonstop. The mud squelched underfoot, and his boots sank into the clay. The wind was howling in the branches, but it was just the wind. When I reached the clearing, the place seemed dead. Not a sound. No insects. Only the trees, cut down at the root, and the remains of a campfire. Empty. But among the branches, almost at the ground, I noticed a wire. Stretched like a trap. He walked around carefully. Then there's another one. And then, the camera. A small, black one, hidden in the trunk of a fallen tree. And a flashing diode. Someone was watching. Not just for us. For everyone who passed through this place. I pulled it out. I took out a flash drive. And I realized that I had to go home. Watch the recordings. Find out who was on the other side of the lens all this time. I returned home at night, soaked, with dirty hands and a flash drive clutched in my fist. My body was buzzing with fatigue, but something was boiling inside that wouldn't let me stop. I immediately inserted the media into my laptop and opened the folder with my notes. The videos were numbered by date, neatly, as if they were an archive of some institution, and not a wild camera in the forest. I started with the last one. The image was shaking, and you could see a clearing, a fire pit, and bushes. A couple of minutes later, I appear in the frame. In the rain. I walk through the forest, look out, move along the path. My heart started pounding faster. So the camera was recording everything in real time. She wasn't abandoned, someone was watching her. Still. I quickly scrolled back. It's been empty for a few days. And then, 3 days after our arrival, me and my brother. We're setting up a tent. We laugh, we swear, he throws a glove at me, I laugh. Everything is as usual. But an hour later, in the evening, in another corner of the frame, someone was standing. A man in a hood, without sudden movements. I was just watching. I pressed pause and zoomed in. The face is not visible. Just the outlines. It is almost invisible against the background of trees. I switched to another video, night. Quietly. Just a bonfire. Then the sound of a twig cracking. The camera moved a little. It wasn't the wind that touched her. Someone was approaching her. And a silhouette flashed right in front of the lens. I rewound it, frame by frame. The same hood. On the shoulder is something like a bag. He came up, looked around the forest, looked directly into the camera and smiled. Calmly. Cold. That moment struck me from the inside out. He knew the camera was working. He knew he was being filmed. And he wasn't afraid. And then he disappeared. He wasn't on any other recordings. I continued to look further. We're back on the record a day later. I'm coming back from the car, carrying water. And my brother is standing by the campfire, saying something towards the forest. He screams. He throws a stone into the thicket. And then, as if realizing that someone is listening, he abruptly freezes. The next frame is night. We're sleeping. But somewhere behind the tent, a flashlight flashes. Someone is sneaking around. Quietly. Carefully. 5 minutes. And disappears. I turned off the laptop. My body ached with tension. It seemed that if I went outside, he would be standing right under the window. I've checked all the locks. He closed the curtains. But there was no sleep. The next day, I took the flash drive to the nearest photo center. I said I wanted to make copies. The guy behind the counter looked at me strangely, but didn't ask any questions. An hour later, I came out with 2 discs. I kept one at home, and hid the other in my parents' house, in the basement, in an old shoebox. I was no longer sure that this story was over. 3 days have passed. I didn't go out, I hardly ate. I just sat at home and looked at every detail. I tried to match the faces in the old photos with this silhouette. Nothing. No coincidences, no leads. Just an inner feeling that I have become a part of something that I have no control over. And then I got a call. Not from a mobile phone, but from a landline. The number was not determined. The voice was male, quiet. You shouldn't have taken the camera. I froze. Who are you? What do you need? Where is my brother? I asked, but the phone was already ringing briefly. I called back, but nothing happened. The number was hidden. I went to the police station. I wrote a statement. I explained everything as best I could. About my brother, about the forest, about the photo, about the camera. They gave me paper, took a flash drive and told me to wait. I was waiting. A week or 2. Silence. And then I got a call again. From the same hidden number. You wanted to know where he was? His voice was hoarse and tired. Where is he? Speak. I was almost screaming. You're looking at the wrong place. Come back to where you were when you were a kid. By the stream. I knew this place. My brother and I ran away from home there once. Then they searched for us all day, and we caught frogs and built a raft. I went. Without hesitation. Nothing has changed there, everything is still overgrown, rotten trees, muddy water. I was walking along the shore and suddenly I saw a metal flash among the bushes. It was a knife. Hunting, familiar. I got it out. His brother's initials are on the handle. Under the knife is a piece of paper, moldy but still legible. They were watching. They knew. I tried to leave, but it was too late. You're next. My brain refused to accept it. I looked at the knife, at the note, and I couldn't believe it. It wasn't his brother's handwriting. He would never write like that. Too neat, too smooth. And the point is, he wouldn't scare me. He would have called. Or he came. I stood up and turned around. The forest was empty. But in the bushes opposite, something moved. I didn't wait. He rushed to the car. I lost my breath on the way, and stumbled twice. He drove away, tires screeching, his hands shaking. He threw the note and the knife into a roadside container, as if that was the way to get rid of it all. And it was only at home, in the shower, when the water was running down my face, that I realized it won't end. Not while I'm alive. Not while someone, somewhere, is still watching. I haven't been going anywhere since. I don't answer calls from unknown numbers. I changed my phone number, taped up my webcam, and stopped posting photos. But every time I see a stranger in the background in an old photo, I feel sick.